Hello, I'm Rakia Bonner, Director of CARU, our privacy attorney, Corey Trombetta. Welcome to In the Sandbox with CARU. This is our first in our new series, and we're going to get it started with safety tips for your kid's first cell phone. So congratulations on this decision. At this point, we're going to assume that you are past the gateway technology of smartphones and AirTags. And if you're not, then we're going to recommend that as a first step. But more likely than not, if you're tuning into this, if you hear this, then you have decided to get your child a first cell phone. So we are here to give you tips, and probably the most appropriate title for this series or this particular session is if you get a child a cell phone, because it is a domino effect that just like if you get a mouse or cookie, ends right back up with another cell phone as it's upgraded or as the new model comes in. So let's kick it off.
So the first tip is open the phone before giving it to your child. Unwrap it, charge it, add a password, and set up parental controls.
Now, Corey, as they decide on a password, do you recommend, can you talk to us from a privacy perspective about the pros and cons of numbers, choosing a number as a passcode versus a face print or a fingerprint?
Sure, yeah. So it's certainly a trade-off. I mean, companies are collecting your child's face print or voice print or thumbprint in order to enable, opening your phone or any password security. But from a cybersecurity perspective, it's safer. It's just a lot harder for hackers to emulate a face or a thumbprint rather than a set of numbers and letters. So I'm a face print, thumbprint kind of person, but
And I have a very complicated 6-digit code. And I do think it's important to note also that know your child's passcode, and you can enter multiple fingerprints and you can enter multiple faces also.
yeah. So after you set up the password, obviously you're not going to do a face print for your child before they get the phone, but after you set up the password, set up parental controls. If you have an Android device, that means creating a Family Link account. So create the Family Link account, add your child as a user on that account, and this will allow you to create screen time limits, locate your child's device, restrict your child's ability to download apps based on the content rating. You can approve app downloads and restrict the content shown in Google Search, Google Play, and YouTube, among other Google products. If you have a child who's over 13, first of all, congratulations for keeping your child away from a cell phone for that long. But you can also add supervision to your child's Google account using the Family Link service. And this has more limited controls, but parents can still approve or block specific apps, approve app purchases, including in-app purchases, manage your child's browsing on Google Chrome, and manage the Google search results your child sees, among other functionalities.
And for iPhone, and I absolutely have bias. I am coming fresh off of green bubble fatigue from Thanksgiving because this person liked this post, this person liked Happy Thanksgiving, this person laughed at this. So for iPhone users, and I think this is the most important tip, is to set up the phone before giving it to a child. But for iPhone users, you want to create a separate Apple ID for your child. You don't want to put them under your Apple ID because then they would be able to see everything that you're doing. So create a separate Apple ID for your child. And from my own experience, I should have mentioned at the top of the program, but I do have two children, and the youngest of which does not know their Apple ID. I have not shared it with them. I'm choosing not to share it with them until a much older teenager, so that I can continue to manage the controls, because once they know their Apple ID, they can go in and under account settings and change some things. So if you have an iPhone, again, you want to create a separate Apple ID for your child. You want to set up family sharing. Decide whether or not you want to share your location with your child. But when you go into family sharing, go under screen time. And when you after you go under screen time, you can create a PIN. So you're going to create a 4-digit code, a 4-digit PIN that you can choose to require to have changes on the phone. So you want to create a screen time passcode. You want to under screen time, you're going to have many options for parental control, some of which include setting time limits during the day. You can set certain times that your child can use your phone. For instance, in our family, the phone is disabled between the hours that school begins and the hours that school ends, and the phone begins again. So you can turn the phone off. It's called downtime in Apple. So you can create that. You can create limits for individual apps. You can manage the people with whom your child communicates under contacts. There's also a communications and safety feature. Turn it on because that can automatically check for sensitive photos or inappropriate photos. Under content and privacy restrictions, again, I would recommend creating a PIN so that a PIN is necessary to have App Store purchases for downloads. Under content, it allows you to decide the ratings, the maximum rating of the content your child watches. You can set it to G, you can set it to PG. You can decide to limit adult websites. First, it'll say you can limit it, unrestricted access, limited adult websites. You can also choose between clean and explicit lyrics, excuse me, please, and content. You will also see under content and privacy options to allow changes. The recommendation is not to allow any changes to be made because once you allow changes, they can go back in, choose explicit, choose TV 14 or PG 13 movies, or things that may or may not be permissible in your family. The other recommendation that I have, just based on personal experience, upon entering a middle school, within 10 minutes, I got over 25 airdropped pictures of extremely graphic material. So the recommendation is to go in to turn off airdrop because your child could be exposed to things that I shouldn't have been exposed to as an adult. Also, you want to turn off, there is a new feature, connect devices, and it allows information to be shared with devices within close proximity. You want to turn that off. Two other things, Corey, and you see that this is the type of device that I have, but the other thing you want to do is turn off read messages because sometimes there is peer pressure. Once a friend knows that you've read a message, there is pressure to respond, and your child may not know the appropriate response and may want to consult with you before responding. So turn off read receipts. And lastly, you're going to turn off notifications for apps, but I may be jumping the ship because I think that's the next one. But after you talk to Corey next, you're going to want to turn off notifications because it has been found, and oftentimes those notifications, the banners that pop up, the sounds, it creates almost a FOMO. So your child may be in another room enjoying something with their hands and hear a notification and want to get on that phone. So turn off notifications for apps.
Yeah, you don't want fear of missing out.
Yes.
So after you've set up parental controls, whether it's an Android or iPhone, you want to download a few safe apps. And to identify safe apps, just do some research. You can do a general search online, read reviews, and there are also services that rate children's apps. If there's not much information about an app that your child wants to use, be wary because some apps can contain malware. Obviously, that's the last thing you want your child's phone to be hacked. And then obviously some of those apps could be social media. And so before you give your child the cell phone, you should make a determination in your family about whether you want to allow them to use social media or not. And if not, then figure out your justification because you raised a free thinker. And if so, then there are a couple of just general safety tips. First is don't let your child submit their personal information online. So have a conversation with them, explain that your address is personal information and their photo is, and their first and last name. And there's also, you might want to have a chat about cyberbullying. And there are also another issue that's sadly prevalent with social media is the issue of grooming. And so you just want to make sure that your child is aware of what that looks like and just have an initial conversation about that. You should also review the options available depending on the platform for restricting content or restricting friend groups. So those are some tips on allowing social media apps on the phone. And then separately, we should cover some general safety advice when using a cell phone. So just have your child always lock their phone when they're not using it and be aware of their surroundings when they have their mobile device. Don't allow them to join a Wi-Fi hotspot that they don't recognize. And that includes one's called free Wi-Fi or public Wi-Fi because hackers regularly use those labels to trick people into joining, unsecure Wi-Fi hotspots. And you also want to disable, in the same vein, you want to disable automatic Wi-Fi connections and file sharing, similar to what Rakia was saying earlier in terms of AirDrop. And always have them keep their mobile phone updated to the newest version, because a lot of the reasons why these phone companies create new versions of their software is because there's a cybersecurity issue with the old version. So just keep your phone updated.
And Corey, you made me think about research when you said researching these apps, have a few installed before you give your child a phone. I know that there are, like, for lack of a better term, like parent spyware, where it's their apps that pick up on words used in text that may be associated with bullies that alert the parents. So if you want to install any of those kind of apps, you should do your research also. Do your research also. And after you install those apps, also go to your settings and go into privacy and turn off the microphone, turn off the camera, turn off those things turn off the location for those apps that are requesting it that you're loading on the phone. So I think that's really important. And I have to remind myself some of those things too, but thank you. And that which brings us to the next tip, which is be aware of your own habits. So after you give, as anyone giving a child a phone will know probably, that children do what they see you doing. You can say something all day, but when they see you doing it, when they see you practicing, it's more likely that they will take heed. So giving a child a cell phone is a perfect reminder to yourself to have good cell phone habits, is to a reminder of yourself to be present, and especially because if this is coming up, one of the next major milestones is probably going to be driving. So they're going to be watching you. Are you texting when you're driving? Are you going to be mindful to say, hey, could you look at this? And my phone just went off. Can you tell me what this is? Or can you read this for me, so that you are responsible using your phone, because they are watching you. And now that they have that same tool, they are going to really be watching you. So be aware of your own phone habits, because children will do as you do, not as you say. Another tip is to set high standards from the beginning. It's much easier to loosen than it is to tighten. So establish that the phone is a tool. We all know that it is mostly used as an entertainment device, but we want to establish early that it's a tool, to use it as a tool, and to also have them understand from the onset the expectation of privacy. Have them know that you will be checking their phone. Make that a standard. Make that something that happens regularly, and do it. It's not, don't just let them know it, but check their phone often. Check their text messages. Check their photos. Check their deleted photos. Check their deleted text. Check your child's phone, because they may or may not be sharing everything, and they may or may not know to share everything with you, but you want to stay on top of it and check their phone regularly. And sometimes you can even look at it together. Hey, let's look at your phone. Let's look through this. And you should do it independently also.
Yeah, and along those same lines is the next tip. You should have an ongoing conversation with your child about their phone use. I would emphasize quality over quantity. I know that we have a lot of conversations about screen time, but if your kid is using their phone to help them with a complicated math problem or homework issue, obviously, like, you want them to do that for as long as they need. Whereas if they're using their phone to like only chat with friends or play games, obviously that quality is not really there. And so it's worth having a conversation about. Similarly, like if you have this ongoing conversation, your child obviously might encounter difficult social situations like cyberbullying, and having an open, ongoing dialogue may help them to come to you when they have these types of issues.
And that ages through teenagers. I mean, that is even through young adulthood. An open dialogue is always best. I love that advice because it's true. And it could vary from day to day. So especially, oh goodness, don't get me started with the group chats. But it could vary from day to day what's going on and what to be aware of and how to coach your children through social situations. But so to that point, it's very important to have an agreement, to develop an agreement with your child. I know in our house, we have a contract, we have an agreement that we work together to develop. Now, some of the things were not optional. Some of the things where we worked together, but some of them were things that I put on there initially. And then after the gift was given, we worked together to develop some things. And it's so interesting because sometimes a child's concept of whether it be a consequence or what's reasonable in screen time is far more strict than what I would have initially, than what I would have put in place. So develop an agreement. A part of that agreement should be placement and time, at least an hour before bedtime, to put that phone away, to put it in a designated place in your home. It could be charging there, but it should be away. And when you, again, that kind of goes to developing high standards in the beginning also, because if you do that as an expectation and becomes a habit, by the time they get to 8th grade or 9th grade, it's still instilled within them. And there may be a time where you can be more lax on the weekends or on vacation or things like that. But for the most part, you should have a time and a designated space to put the phone down in the evenings. There could be rules like not during family time, not during dinner time. They should be expected to be present. There's always, as you touched upon, the issue of appropriateness, to understand that what pictures are appropriate, to understand that not only it's not good enough that you didn't take the picture yourself, because a tween and a teen will explain to you to death what has happened and they will justify it and you will lose. But it's really important to let them know, even forwarding something. If you're going to go onto social media, I have been in situations in rooms, especially in my past job, where children have been denied opportunities as young adults for decisions they made as children, even by liking something. They didn't comment, they just simply clicked the thumbs up or the heart, they just liked something. And they left their footprint, their digital footprint. So it's important as you develop rules, as you develop an agreement, it's important for them to understand they have a digital footprint. And that footprint, whether they delete a text, whether they delete a photo, it still lives forever. Whether it's in the deleted file that you as a parent should pretend like you never know about, or if it's on your server or a flash memory, a SIM card, those things live forever, right?
People can take screenshots. You have no control over that. So yeah,
it's immensely important to cover that in your agreement with your child. So the hours of use but mostly appropriateness and time. And I would also say consequences too.
Yeah.
So I think, and I want to give this disclaimer too, because we've either given far more than 10 tips or far less with many, many sub tips, 1A, 2. So, no. But I think it's time to get to the actual gift. So we have preset the phone. We're not just giving them the phone blind. We're going to have this phone with settings already done, with parental controls intact, with some apps loaded, and it's time to give the gift. So we're going to charge the phone, we're going to turn up the volume, and we're going to wrap it beautifully. And it's time for the gift, and just call the number and have the box ring, and you will be the best parent in the world until you're the worst because you take it away for punishment. But those are our tips, and we wish you all happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays. Good luck.